Hello and welcome to Open School of Business. Today, before we start, I wanted to ask you for a favor to go into iTunes and subscribe and also rate and review our podcast. It really helps with getting to more audiences that can really find this content useful. Thank you so much. Today, I am very happy to have our guest, the author of an amazing book about leadership, a person with over many years of experience in corporate with a very successful executive career. And he can talk from his own experience about leadership and about owning your own business, because he's also a business owner right now. And he has helped many businesses grow and become very profitable. So a lot of FMCG companies, Reckitt Bekanzer, Lavazza is an amazing brand. I love that one as well. So without further ado, I'd like you to introduce yourself and share with your current state of the business.
So hello, audience, whoever you may be out there. And this is Tom, and I'm your friend. So hopefully some of the stories, some of the leadership ideals that I share with you, hopefully it helps you. So that really is the objective, is to help this audience. And if you are thinking about starting up a new business, already started a business and struggling to grow, then maybe we'll touch on a couple of things which may help you. So, and as Anara mentioned, I have a book. You'll find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any really online retailer. It's called C-Suite and Beyond. And it's really, C-Suite and Beyond is about the 4 keys to leadership. And those 4 keys are common to all successful leaders and all successful leading companies. They may be big, they may be small, but they have that in common. So we'll talk about that a little bit today, and hopefully my mistakes that I made in life, and some of the wins that I had in life, you can learn from it. I always say it's much easier to learn from somebody else's mistakes than make it your own, but we'll see.
Yes, I love that, because a lot of people shy away from talking about their mistakes. So when I find a guest who wants to talk about their mistakes, is amazing. So why don't you just start with actual, what would you do differently now that you have all the wisdom and you've had the experience? If you were the business owner, and all, things that you've done that you would improve.
Well, first of all, what would I do different? Probably not much. I mean, somebody asked me that because I'm no longer 20. I'm not 65. And they said, well, Tom, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it differently? And I said, no, because guess what? If I did it differently, I would make different mistakes, right? The only person that doesn't make a mistake is the one that doesn't try. If you don't try, if you don't do anything, then you won't make a mistake. That's safe. But if you're trying and if you're risking, then you will make mistakes, but that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail, as long as you learn from them and you continue to grow. And that's really been my, whole, life journey is making mistakes and learning from it and growing it from it. I've had businesses that didn't take off as much as I liked them to do. I had businesses that flourished. But the common factor is I started those businesses. If I sat on the sideline and I was afraid to make a mistake, then nothing would have happened.
All right. So can you talk about some of these success stories alongside with some examples where the business failed? So we kind of get an idea of how things were different, or maybe the circumstances were different. And that gives a lot of thought for people.
Let's talk about first what works, right? So, what I talk about is and this is true for me, this is true for everybody. You have to have a passion, and you have to be good at something if you're going to get into that business, right? Don't start a business for the sake of starting a business, right? Start a business because you're passionate about a topic, right? So For me, I'm passionate about leadership, and I'm good at leadership, and I'm good at mentoring folks, and I'm good at coaching folks. I'm good at leading companies, so I can work with folks as a consultant, as an advisor, to show them the way. Show them the way with the 4 keys that I believe in. So if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you have questions whether or not you're good at it or not, then don't do it. Life is too short. To spend 8, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're starting up a new business, you're going to spend 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So if you're not passionate about spending about something, why would you spend 14 hours of your life every day doing it?
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of people who do quit corporate are seeking that passion and enjoyment in the life. And that's how they get that freedom, through doing what they love and getting paid for it. That's one, one kind of group of people. But there is also another one that I would call like a full-time entrepreneur type, where their whole goal is just to find something that is small and scale it and become sort of a unicorn. And sometimes they don't necessarily enjoy whatever it is that they're doing. They're just looking for that big accomplishment in taking this kind of just a normal product and turning into a brand that everyone talks about, for example.
Well, I guess there's serial killers and there's serial entrepreneurs, right?
You can say that as well. And I've seen people doing that, and sometimes one idea doesn't work out and they work on the next and the next, and sure enough, after several, they will find that something that will really take off.
Well, look, their passion may be entrepreneurship. So that may be their passion, not necessarily and like I mentioned, look, there's nothing wrong with starting a business and the business failing. It's okay. Especially if you're a serial entrepreneur, it may take you, 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses until you get it right, before you make money. Right. I think, Thomas Edison, I don't know how many experiments he had before he invented the light bulb. I remember reading one story about him where him and his engineer friend, they were doing an experiment and they had this massive explosion.
Yeah.
and they almost got killed. And then, Thomas basically started taking notes right away. And the other guy says, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm taking notes because I know this didn't work. So I want to find out, what this explosion is about." It didn't work for the light bulb, but it worked for something else. So, through experimentation, through wins and failures, that's how you build a business. But, you mentioned something about brand. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is one of the keys is, as an individual, you need to have a very strong idea of who you are, what your character is. So why is that important? When I worked for large Fortune 100 companies, I would have, people walking through my door with MBAs from Harvard, MBAs from Oxford, looking for jobs, right? Because the draw was the company's brand, right? So everybody wants to work for the Googles. Google's not going to have any problem attracting people. Apple's not going to have any problems attracting, good talent. The Procter and Gamble's of the world, the Coca-Colas of the world, the Nikes of the world. These are all very strong brands that people believe in. So they will not have a problem attracting good talent. But one of the things that I learned, working for these large organizations, I always had talent coming through the door and working great talent. And then I started my own business, and I try to attract good talent. And the first question from them was, "Who the heck are you, and why should I work for you?" Right? Because who's Tom? And what's this startup company? Widgets Incorporated. So what's Widgets Incorporated about? Why should I work for Widgets Incorporated? And who the heck is Tom? And why should I work for him? So The biggest draw when you start up a company and you're an entrepreneur is you are. People have to buy into you. People have to believe in you. And if you don't know who you are, and if you don't have a strong character, then how can anybody buy into you? You haven't figured out yourself who you are or what you're about. So how can anybody else believe in it? So that would be my biggest advice to somebody who's starting a company or in its early phases, is people come to work for you because they believe in you, right? And those are the people that you want.
Yes, and I love that example. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face is to attract talent and retain talent and tell that story about their own vision and having that brand to literally have people that will follow you where you're taking them. And I think that's where you come in as a leadership coach, because I think, through talking through the 4 keys, you can get someone build a framework of what their leadership was going to look like. And what does that mean for their particular company or for their particular idea?
Yeah. So, again, the first key for, if you talk about the 4 keys, the first key again is for an individual, it's an individual's character. And for a company, it's the company culture. I mean, a company culture is equivalent to an individual's character. In fact, in a startup organization, what usually happens is whoever the founder was, whatever his character was, whatever his personality was, that becomes the de facto culture of the company. And that will be the culture of the company unless, the company gets a little bit bigger and somebody intentionally takes a look and says, okay, what do we want our culture to be, right? Do we want a culture to be, like the founder? And, maybe the founder is a really energetic individual and he works, 20 hours a day and he's just, he's like a bubbling boil of energy. He's constantly, running around doing this, doing that, and that becomes the culture of the company. And then he kind of surrounds himself with people who are willing to work 20 hours a day and all bubbly, so they all kind of bubble off each other, and that becomes the culture of the company. Or maybe the founder is not that individual. Maybe the founder is a very strategic individual. So then he may have a tendency to surround himself with a lot of strategic thinkers, right?
Yeah. And what is your advice in there? Like, do you actually advise to have people that are alike, or is it better to balance the company and think, I'm not a bit of a, risk taker. I'd like some more risky people as my co-founders so we wouldn't miss some opportunities, or is it actually better so that you can all be on the same page to have people alike?
So those are two different questions, right? So the culture, whatever that culture of the organization is, that's non-negotiable. Everybody has to believe in the same culture. So there's two things in any organization that is never negotiable: the culture and the vision. You can have a lot of discussion up front to what our culture should be. You can have a lot of discussion up front what the vision of the company should be. But once you agree on it, the discussion is over. Either everybody believes, or if they don't believe, then there's a big problem. If one person doesn't believe, then you have to get rid of that person because you can't have, dissension. So everybody has to be on board with that. Now, the second part of that question you said is one of the keys that I talk about is the team, right? So how do you put a successful team together? And you're 100% right. You need to have a diverse thinking team. Right. So you can't have all strategic wingnuts on a team because then they'll never get anything done. You can't have all, guys who are working 20 hours a day and full of energy and want to get things done because they may be too haste and they may be very efficient in implementing things, but it may be the wrong things because they haven't thought it through. Right. So what you need to put together a team that's a diverse thinking team. So you make sure that not all of you have the same blind spots, because if you surround yourself with people who think just like you, then you will, by definition, you will all have the same blind spots. So you all not going to see the same things. So, once you put a team together, make sure it's a diverse team. It's a diverse thinking team. So when I define diversity, Diversity is not from gender, skin color, etc. Diversity is from diverse thinking, how you think about problem solving, how you approach people, how you communicate with people. These are all diverse approaches and diverse thinking. So again, just to quickly summarize, culture, vision, very important. Have lots of discussion up front, make sure people buy into it. And then, once, because look, the nature of human beings is if you tell me what to do and I'm not really excited by it and I don't believe in it, I'm not going to have my heart into it. But if you ask me up front and I put my input into it, whether that be culture or vision, then I will go to bat for that until, I'm 6 foot under, right? And then just as a side note to that, if you have an organization and the culture and the vision already exists, and today it's very easy because you have all these websites and, you can Google any company, you're looking good like their website, and on their website, their culture should be evident. The vision statement should be evident. And if that doesn't, if you don't agree with that, you don't think you can flourish in that environment, don't work for that company, no matter how attractive the job may be.
Oh, thank you for that. I think it's just amazing that you pointed out that both are important. You have to have unity in vision and culture, but have very diverse team in terms of their thinking and their approach to work. So that way you don't have blind spots. It's just really essential. And I love that you were talking about how you need to have the discussion and, you can agree up front and then the discussion will be over. Because I think in the beginning, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're sort of design some kind of ad hoc teams and they don't necessarily think about the vision and the culture at the very beginning, and it just evolves by itself. And even if they do write some kind of vision, they kind of do it in terms of like, oh, we need to fill that gap in the website. So let's just write up something nice that sounds, positive enough so people come, and ambitious enough so we make some profit, and it should be also eco-friendly or something that's popular or whatever is trending right now, right? So what kind of, when you do your workshops, for example, for a new company, do you have certain framework of thought, like how they should approach this activity of coming up with their vision or their culture? What kind of questions they should ask, some categories, or maybe.
So culture, your culture is going to start with values. So you have to start. So the exercise that I do is I basically have like 50 up to 75 generic values, and you hand out a piece of paper with all these values on it, and people circle the top 6. And then, you kind of go around, and usually what happens is from those top 6, maybe, 2, 3, or 4 are common to everybody's piece of paper, right? So then those are what we call fundamental values that you can start building your culture on, right? So what you should have is any organization should have about 5 or 6 values that they share. Those are shared values. Everybody believes in them, and that's going to be the foundational principle for what your culture statement is going to be, right? And then when it comes to vision, my advice to everybody is make it very, very simple, right? So if you look at companies, Coca-Cola, we refresh the world. Nike, we unleash human potential. Puma, we're the fastest brand on earth, right? So those are extremely simple vision statements. And the reason for that is because you want people to be able to understand it and buy into it. The moment somebody comes up with a vision statement that says, we want to be great corporate citizens and we want to help the world and, create shareholder value and be environment, save the environment. I mean, it's such a convoluted statement. Nobody understands it and nobody believes in it. So make it simple and easily understood. So I can tell you, with Coca-Cola, it's, we refresh the world. What does that mean? Well, any product that Coca-Cola launches is going to be refreshing and it's going to have global distribution. It's about the world. right? So when Elon Musk colonizes Mars, we'll have Coca-Cola up there because that's going to be the new definition of the world, right? I'll show you, my personal vision statement is man of God, leader of men. So anything that I do is going to honor God, and anything I could do is going to be a leadership role. And why is that important? And by the way, everybody should have a personal vision statement for themselves, right? What a personal vision statement or a vision statement for a company is it helps you make major decisions about things that you're going to do, right? Like I said, Coca-Cola, we refresh the world. Well, it's unlikely that any brand manager in Coca-Cola would introduce a product that's not refreshing, right? I've had, when I was working in Eastern Europe, I had plenty of opportunities to lead tobacco companies. And I always said, no, I don't want to work for a tobacco company because that's going to go against my vision statement and my values. So it helps you, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you talk to Simon Sinek, he uses a different thing than vision statement. He calls it, what is a company's why? Why are they doing something? What is their why? And he uses Kodak as a good example, where Kodak was, one of the great imaging companies early on, and they lost their why. They got off their vision statement. They started going down and started looking at short-term results. So they started doing products that were, short-term, and they kind of missed the whole revolution of where we are with imaging today. So they lost their vision statement. They didn't follow it. They got distracted by having to make quarterly numbers, and they did all kinds of projects which did not adhere to that vision statement that they had, right? So that's what a vision statement is important for. It's not about next year. It's not about next quarter. It's 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Dave Martin, who's a pretty well-known guy, he talks about a cathedral vision. Is your vision cathedral? So what does he mean by that? Well, if you look at all the European great cathedrals, they were all built 200, 300, 400, 500 years. Right. So if you had a vision to build, I think the cathedral in Köln was 500 years in the making. So if you drew this up on a piece of paper and you had a vision for it, it wasn't going to happen in your lifetime, right? So so do you have a cathedral vision is the question.
I really like that you also touched upon the spiritual, because I think that's what is lacking in a lot of the corporate world. And that's why people are actually leaving the corporate world to create their own thing, because that's when they exercise their creative abilities and the ability to be closer to God with that purpose of that, what they find. So in that sense, like in a way, it's easier because you have the freedom to do it as an entrepreneur. And also it is more challenging because you have so much more responsibility. If you're creating something and it harms someone else, you will feel all of that responsibility much more so than if you were in a company that was doing it and you happen to have a job because that was the only option at the time for you to feed your family. So I feel like it's a very good position to be in because you have the authority and you have the freedom, but also that responsibility of trying to make the profit, trying to still make the financials work. That's what makes a lot of business people, including especially entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, be very short-term thinkers. They're really thinking about how am I gonna make my next rent for the space I'm renting out for the business, and etc. It's like very short term. So how do you advise to link that vision with everyday tasks so they feel motivated and at the same time they feel very efficient and they're making their money?
Look, your vision has nothing to do with your everyday tasks. I mean, hopefully your everyday tasks are getting you towards that vision, but paying rent has nothing to do with your vision. Paying rent has to do with sales. So, my advice to you is don't rent an office until you sold your first product and you got sales income. One of the great examples, and I don't know the gentleman's name directly, but he's one of those serial entrepreneurs, and he's many times a millionaire. But he was at one time at an airport about 35, 40 years ago, and they were all waiting in line to get their boarding pass. And the process took so long that he missed his flight, and he was very, very frustrated. So he came up with the idea of why do we need to all stand in line to get our boarding pass from this person? How about if there was a distributive method to all get our boarding passes, and everybody can walk up to quote unquote a kiosk and get their boarding pass, right? So one would think, well, that would take a lot of capital. That would take a lot of money to actually come up with a prototype and get that and then sell it to. So he did it differently. He basically came up with a design, had it patented, and he went to one of the airlines and they said, look, everybody's very frustrated with the boarding pass system. So here's an idea, and I'm going to give you 12 months exclusivity, so only your airlines can use this. In turn for that, I need development money of about $350,000, whatever the number was. But you have 12 months exclusive. And then he went to the next airline and said, okay, after 12 months, you're going to have, 6 months. So before he ever made a product, he sold it for 2 different airlines. Right. So he had revenue, he had sales, he didn't get the office first.
Yeah.
He didn't go.
That's an amazing example. I want everyone to think about this and much, many more like that.
Think about your first sale, right? The companies that I started up, I never started with an office. My office was my trunk. And, I had a phone and I had a computer, and now it's much easier because you got, Wi-Fi everywhere. So you can sit in a Starbucks or whatnot, but, be productive. Don't just sit in Starbucks and use, use Wi-Fi for Instagram or whatever, but, be productive. Yeah. But, when you put your business plan together as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, think about it to say, look, what can I do to sell something without having to spend any money to do it?
Right. And I would like to actually dig into that. And I would like to do 2 things in parallel. Compare the sales and your experience in Lavazza, how you managed to make Lavazza available almost across USA. And your first job as the leadership coach, how you approached it and how you got your first gig as a coach or as a speaker, and all the line of work that you're in now.
Well, look, as a large organization, there's different business models that you're going to use. And what I learned in working for large corporate America is I don't care if I sell 1 product or I sell 100 million products. There are certain things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to have a sales distribution model. You're going to have a marketing model. You're going to have some back office things. So it's not, as a startup, you may be doing all those things yourself, but it still has to be done, and it has to be done right. So don't try to run your business out of an Excel spreadsheet, because that's not going to last you too long, right? So, and whether you're a large organization or you're a smaller organization, you're going to build your business through relationships, right? So you're going to say, okay, well, who do I know? If you're trying to distribute products, okay, say, who do I know? Who do I know in Carrefour? Who do I know in Walmart? Who do I know in Costco? Who do I know in other large retailers? And then get on their calendars and be able to go and meet with them and try selling your products to them, right? Same thing with as my consulting business and leadership. Okay, how do I funnel to get people interested, to do a workshop for them, to do engage them in maybe a motivational kickoff for a sales meeting. So, okay, there's a funnel, there's probably talk to 100 people, 150 people, and then eventually one person says, "Yep, Tom's the guy."
Yes, it's awesome. I like that because there is always a funnel, and the more effort you spend into maximizing that quantity, the likelihood of you getting a sale would increase. So it's always a number game.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying our conversation, but I think the time is limited.
Yeah,
So
we're running out of time.
I would
Absolutely.
like to ask you just one last question. And it's a little bit tricky because I think, especially a lot of business owners in the beginning, they just feel so free after quitting their corporate jobs, and they want to do all of this stuff on their own, and they have vision and energy. And a lot of times, it can be very hard to convince them to actually take up any coaching, or even to recognize that they need leadership lessons, because a lot of people believe they're such great leaders, and they don't need any lessons, basically. So what do you tell people like that? Have you worked with people like that, first of all, and how do you turn them around?
But look, if you think you have all the answers, then God bless you. I'm 65. I don't think I have all the answers. I learn every day. I have mentors in my life that if you're a startup organization, the thing that I would advise you most is find out who your inner circle is. Make them, even if they don't work for you, having them being a sounding board. They would be your quote unquote advisory, board. So you're accountable to somebody, because if you're only accountable to yourself and you think you have all the answers, you're in trouble.
Right.
So
because you're in a silo, as there is
yeah.
no feedback and there is no growth. Yeah.
So even for me, even as a small business, now I don't even try to do it myself. I usually try to partner with 2-3 people. So the two businesses I own now, they're partnerships. So it's much easier that way because you're constantly having dialogue. You're not having arguments, but you're constantly having debates on how to do things, and that's healthy.
Right, and that that ensures that you don't have the blind spots that you were talking about. So
Yeah,
that's really
absolutely.
amazing. And in terms of those partnership, can you just elaborate more a little bit about the two companies you have, so that our audience can find you and find your services in any of these companies?
Well, the easiest way to do it is I'm blessed and cursed with a last name. So my last name is Kereszti, Kereszti. If you Google us, you'll find me and my sister. And my sister's an OBGYN in Boston, so it's not her. You can go to Amazon and again look for C-Suite and Beyond, which is the book. And you can also go to my website. Just go to kereszti.com, and that gets you to my website. So there's in fact one of the offers I make to all my audiences, including the audience here, is if you go to my website and you go to the contact page and you fill out your information, I will send you an executive summary of my book. So you don't even have to buy the book. I mean, there's only a handful of stories in the summary. In the whole book, there's tons and tons of stories and lessons learned. So I would encourage you to get the book, but if you don't want to get the book, I'm happy to just send you a quick summary of the book. It's about 20 pages. It's an easy read. So just fill out the form on my website, and I'll be happy to send it to you.
All right. Thank you so much for your generosity and for your time. I think it was a really great interview. It was very pragmatic. It had a lot of life lessons. So thank you so much for your time.
All right, Anwar. Thank you so much.